Thank you so much for doing Vita for hosting us. It's really always kind when there is an office space to use. And I know New York City has plenty, but it's always nice to bring the community together. As I said earlier, this is the first time we're coming together as a Customer Success Pro community. A lot of you probably heard my voice or at least seen a post, but as I've said to some of you, I've appreciated you hearing my voice, but I think it's so much more fun to put faces like on the other side, because usually it's just in front of the screen. And it's nice to also bring a great panel together to discuss exactly a very hot and topical thing happening right now. I think all of us are feeling it, but it's no longer nice to have. It's not even being think about. It's actually now we are implementing it every single day. And I have had the honor of having all three of the panelists individually. But again, it is nice to have a panel together today. I will let them actually introduce themselves because I think it's way better. And I'm sure they have better spiels than I can say. But I would just love to start with an icebreaker. I didn't brief them on this, so I hope that they're ready for this. But I would love to know, other than your name, your title, company, all those wonderful things, I would love to know what is one way you've actually used AI this week, and be honest if it actually would save you time or cause more work. So one way that you've used AI, and has it actually like save you time or cause you more work? So I feel like sometimes when we talk to either chat or Claude or anything, sometimes it ends up causing us more work than not. So I'm super curious. Cassie, since you're right next to me, I will start with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Cassie. I am the head of growth strategy at Clay. I just started at Clay 7 weeks ago, so I'm still trying out that title. But it's been a wild journey and very fun. Before Clay, I was at Monday.com for 6 years, leading their CS department in the US. And I'm based here in New York. But other than that, so to answer the icebreaker question, I just came from a hackathon in San Francisco. Hackathons are like a very key play at Clay, and we did our first ever mega hackathon where we were bringing together 24 different customers for 2 days of building. And it's really rare that you get a customer locked in for 48 hours to be able to spend time technically in your product. So while I was there, it inspired me to do some building myself. I am still learning Clay as a product, but what I was gaining from meeting these customers is a lot of good information that was relevant for my teams to know as it relates to forecasting and renewals that are coming up. So we're trying to get our renewal motion and our forecasting motion down. We just decided to go in-house with this, so we're not using a tool at the moment. But I use Claude Code to help me build a forecasting tool, and it took, I will say, like the work was long and extensive, and it didn't work as quickly as I wanted it to. But I stuck with it, and now I have a working app, and tomorrow's my first forecasting call that I'm going to use it on. So I'll let you know tomorrow how it goes.
Exciting. Amazing. Malin, over to you.
I was just saying to Cassie, the last time we met, there was a Fortune holder involved. Well, that's the story around today. But but my name is Malin, and I run the CS team at Planhat. Planhat is a customer platform. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. And I've been with the company for quite long now, about 4.5 years, based here in New York City. I'm Swedish originally, hence the weird name of the accent. So yeah, that's a bit about me and my AI story for this week. So I actually, maybe 6 months ago, I asked my boss, the CEO of Planhat, if I could have a chief of staff. Because that's what people do these days. When they're executives, they have a chief of staff. He said, blank, no. So then I'm like, okay, I want to try to vibe code my own chief of staff. So that's what I did. And now I tell people on my team, because I feel like I wanted it, because I feel like I'm a bottleneck. So a lot of people ask me things, and then I'm in a customer meeting or I'm on a flight or something happens and I'm just slowing things down by not being there. So now I tell people, go and ask my chief of staff. And I send them the link. But something, I don't know what I did with the prompting, because the thing is very rude. So I think
it's learning from yourself.
It's learning from you.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm rude. I don't know. Some work to do. So sometimes that causes me more trouble than makes it work.
Amazing. I love that's a great use case. I love that it's so direct. Great chief of staff, if I say so myself. Amazing. Last but not least, Chad.
Yes. Hey, everyone. So I'm Chad. I'm the head of customer success at a company called Avoca. So Avoca is the AI platform for the trades. So service trades, like if your air conditioning or heating goes down and you're calling someone or texting someone, we now have AI that can respond and like look at your appointments, and it's pretty neat stuff. But it's very complex. And so I've been in customer success for a number of years and listened to this podcast and really enjoy it. And in terms of my AI troubles. So I've been now at Avoca for about a little over 4 months, so very new. I think I spent the first month like cleaning up HubSpot, which is still not clean, of course. No CRMs. And then we've recently done a segmentation, and we've been doing like a CSAT or NPS survey with customers. And I want to present the results to my leadership team and show them where we are doing well, where we can improve. And I had a RevOps team for a segmentation all together. Of course, there was many records that didn't have like a segment, and me being wanting the data, very pristine and perfect. I ran this great presentation, and then it's like I don't know, 75 records didn't have like a tier in our segmentation model. So then that created more work. I had to go back and put all those tiers in, get them in HubSpot, and then like redo the data, and then I could see like actual results and see what challenges were. But there's been the pain that was there.
Amazing. And today's topic is all around like not just how we're using AI, but how it fits into our tech stack, because I feel like in the last 6 months or so, there is a new AI tool for every little niche thing that we can do in our lives. Like from personal to professional, there is an AI tool popping up every 30 seconds at this point, and it's being vibe coded probably right now. Well, there's someone somewhere vibe coding a new AI tool that's going to solve a problem. But if you could go back and look at what your team was doing, let's say 6 months or 12 months ago, like walk us through what you put in place when it comes to the tech, the AI, like what sort of workflows have you put in place that you feel like from 6 months ago till today has genuinely helped your teams as far as efficiency, as far as improving day-to-day lives of customer success professionals? Like, what is one part of either tooling, workflow systems that if you look from 6 months ago till today, what would be like, I can't take that away now. It's so critical to how we work because AI is so embedded into everything we do. Malin, can I start with you? Because I know you guys are a CS tool, and I know you've made a very big claim to be AI, and it is for sure. And I'm curious, what does that look like now at Planhat?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing there?
Yeah, so one thing that I feel like we really nailed in the last 6 months is an agent that handles our sales to CS handover. So our post-sales team manage all the commercials. So it's a commercial team that do all the renewals, upsell, everything. The sales team is not involved after the deal closes. And, sometimes there's problems with getting them on a call and having a little handover and getting some information out of that. So basically, we have an agent that goes through all the sales calls from the sales process, summarizes them. It creates a document for the team and the post-sales team, part of the implementation team too, that takes over. And then it also goes and suggests, based on capacity planning, it suggests an implementation manager and employment strategies that should take that customer. There's a human in the loop there, and sometimes take a look at that. And it also creates a kickoff deck, right? Where like, okay, this is why the customer is here. This is why they bought Planhat. This is the pain that we're solving. We're focusing on driving outcomes with our customers, right? So like, this is the outcomes that the customer is looking for. So that we can just show up to the meeting and like, we're very well prepared. That is done. Saves a ton. I don't think that our team feels without that.
I love that. Cassie, I'm going to come to you next because again, AI first organization. Clay's building some really cool stuff. What is something from, I know you haven't even been there for 6 months, but just thinking, even also a little bit of Monday,
Sure.
like what has changed for your teams that you've run in the last 6 months when it comes to tooling?
So Clay was building a lot of really cool tools even before I got there. One of the examples going even before, actually right around the handover period, is trying to identify the right person to assign an account to. I think a lot of people have tried to get this flow correct. But what we've been able to do is make a smart recommendation process that managers can validate, which I think has been a huge time saver. But more than that, it's also helped us get really smart about what does a good book of business look like and how do you want to distribute your accounts in a way that will best service the customer, but also set your team up for success. So that's something that they implemented right before I got there. And for the managers in particular, it's been a huge time saver. One thing that I built in the last few weeks that we're actually launching next week is an account planning tool. So we didn't do account plans at Clay. Just for all of you to know, the growth strategy team at Clay is full of sales. So they've done everything from implementation to classic CS adoption, and then also expansion and renewal. So there wasn't a lot of need to collaborate with sales, for example, on a customer. We have a small co-sell motion that's now being spun up, but more than that, I want account planning for the purpose of looking longer term with our customers. That said, account planning can be a very heavy lift to get started. You have to put a lot of information about your customer into a plan before you can actually start to execute on it. So Clay actually, I'm learning that Clay can do basically anything at this point. It's known as a go-to-market enrichment and orchestration tool, but we can also use Clay to consolidate first-party and third-party data about accounts and about contacts. So I can use Clay to automatically feed my account plan with a lot of the information that I already want, including information from Snowflake, Gong, Salesforce, but also enriched third-party information when it comes to things like account mapping or white space mapping and better understanding the customer. So it's automatically taking all that information and putting it into our account plan. But most importantly, there's pieces that I actually don't want to use AI for and I don't want to automate. And I'm creating human in the loop, but it's even more than human in the loop. It's like human pushing their critical thinking capabilities to show that they know still how to strategize a customer, how to create a value narrative, how to pressure test that value narrative. That's all what the team should be doing. And you overshot it out with AI, you lose some of that muscle. So this document that we currently have living in Notion that we're about to bring to life and have entire meetings around on a weekly basis is half generated by AI using Clay and then half human manual input that I'm expecting them to update on a weekly basis.
Oh, cool. I love these things. Like so many ideas already. Chad, we were talking about like how much you guys are building in the last few months. Again, you're new into your role, but what's changed for your team in the last 6 months while implementing AI tooling?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would say that we're probably the least sophisticated of the three in your teams. Like when I joined, just to give people context, in 2025, I think they started at 2 million Avoca and they went to 25 million at the end of the year. And so it's just like astronomical growth, I would say. And when I joined, we had one team, it was like a CSM team and a very messy house file, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so I've been really building very fast. And we implemented sort of you mentioned where the handoff, we automate the handoff where I take all the calls, all the emails and sum it into this really great document that's created dynamically and then slapped to individuals. And I do that through Claude. I think the thing that's probably been the most impactful is this coaching tool that I created for the team. And so what it does is it looks at all their calls, it looks at their calendars, it tells them, each team member, where are you spending your time? How many calls are you have with certain customers? What's the ARR? And so that's giving them a bit of a mirror. It's like, okay, where am I spending my time? Am I spending my time in the right customers? And then it says, what have you been doing well? And where can you improve? And it does that by going through all their calls. And then it just gives them pointers based on their calls, based on criteria that I put forward in the prompt. And then the last thing it does is that I've given them a system to follow in terms of how I want them to conduct their calls. So making sure they have an agenda, making sure that they're asking strategic questions, making sure they're bringing value, and then making sure that they're assigning action to the meeting and setting next steps. And so it's a whole evaluation that's done through attention, which we use for call reporting. And so I've taken that scorecard and pulled it out into the summary. So at the end of the week, they have like where they spent their time, what they've done well, where they can improve, what their scorecard is, and then also like what are key things they should be aware of. So it's pulling all this in, it Slacks it to them, it gives them a 3-bullet summary in Slack, and they can click on a link and it opens up the great report. And so basically I outsource my coaching because at this point, we're going so fast that I have a director of delivery implementation starting July 6th, director of support starting July 6th, and I'm hiring for a director of our TAN group or CS group. And so I had to, I want to give feedback. And what's great about this is that it's better than I could ever do in terms of coaching probably because it's giving them coaching and then it actually has a link into the call, like the specific call and where they can improve. So it's just very impactful for them and just reminds them, okay, I need to focus on this. And every time this goes out, I get thumbs up and emojis, they really like it. So that's been super, super impactful. And then what we will get to in a bit is that I've created dashboards outside of HubSpot because HubSpot is for reporting. And I found that I can customize the reports how I want it using mobile as the
No, it kind of brings me to my next question a little bit because I think a lot of teams have been using AI in probably very obvious ways. We kind of said it. There's been note takers, there's been call summaries, there's been push to Slack, XYZ. It's been really cool to see how teams have adopted AI and used it every single day. But I think the most common use case is call summary. like, and then admin after that call summary, whether it's updating a CRM, whether it's sending out like an email to a customer. But again, thanks to things like Lovable and all these other tools, I've already heard you guys talk about building your own custom dashboards. I'd love for you to share with your audience. Maybe this is like a secret AI thing you're building if you want to share it. But what are some non-obvious ways that you guys are using AI to help improve your team's lives? And again, call recordings, pretty cool. Again, Dash, but is there something like unique or fun that either you're currently building, rolling out, or even thinking about with your teams? Because I think in the world we live in, sharing how we're using AI is only going to move the needle forward for customer success and the teams that we run. So I feel like I learned so much when I hear what other people are building. So I'm super curious, what's one non-obvious way that you guys are using AI to help improve your CSM's life? I'm going to come to Chad first because I know you've been building some really cool things. So I'm going to come to you first.
Like a non-obvious thing that I've been doing is that when I joined, like our team was completely global. And so I knew that and we're working through that. We're hiring and adjusting. But one of the things I wanted to make sure is that things were not falling through the cracks. And so I wanted to be able to like monitor and see that, are we getting back to our customers? And so I was like, well, how do I do that? I was like, I don't know how to do that. I talked to our head of sales and he's like, okay, well, what you can do is you can get access to Gmail and you can start to pull that data in. And then you can create like a dashboard that will say like, after X number of hours, if they haven't replied, like there's some sort of wording. And so I'm like, okay, like I'll get that. And so I was able to pull that and get it into a dashboard. And then I was able to add a prompt where it just, you click a button and it sends like a Slack nudge to the individual just to make sure that they're following up. And it wasn't in any like malicious or anything. It's just like, hey, like, I know you're really busy. Like, can you please like make sure you follow up on this particular customer? And so, it's just a lot of these things that you can build. It's just very, if you think about it and then you think through it, then you can actually build it and accomplish it. Another thing is just in metrics in general, like again, HubSpot reporting is just so bad. And I think that as leaders, the hardest part for us is to show the rest of the organization what we're doing and to do it in a very easy way. And so as an example, I wanted to show, because I split up our CSM TAN team into a delivery team and to a TAN team. So it's a delivery, like implementation, and then post-implementation to focus on value. And so I wanted to show that this change actually improved our time to value. And so I was able to break down and just, it was like, put some levels, like please create me a report breakdown by each individual, show me quarter over quarter, what's the improvement we've made in time to value. And what it does is it shows you the high level and then it allows you to drill into each individual. And there was one individual in the team I didn't realize that like was just destroying everybody else in terms of number of implementations that she's launched and also for time to value. And what was great is that I was able to show that to the rest of the organization. I mean, this person was doing well, but in like literally 3 minutes, I was able to add this dashboard into my kind of greater, what I call CS command center and Lovable. And I did the same on retention. So I have like a quarterly AR retention. I was able to build that, break it down by each individual, and then drilling further in terms of what are the customers that we lost and why. And it just made it so much easier and it gave visibility to the rest of the organization. So they stopped coming to me and said, okay, what's going on with this customer? Or how's this person doing? Like, what's going on over there? And that's just like how you can manipulate data and display it. Once you display it, then you can learn from it and then keep changing it and improve it.
Love that. Malin, again, being specifically in the CS tooling space, I'm super curious what your take on this and what your team's doing.
Yeah, I think I have a pretty good example. So at Planhat, we support a lot of post-sales team, a lot of CS teams. We think that CS is really sales and services. So we also have CRM offering. And in the last 6 months or so, we've also come out with a professional services offering. So that's things like time tracking, capacity planning, workflows, things like professional services teams. Yes, I have learned. And then obviously the first thing you want to do is upsell this thing to your customers, right? And we have, thousands of customers. So I sat down, I'm like, okay, so who needs this? How I need to do white spacing, right? So what we did is that we built an agent that went and looked at all the customers, different data points, their website, for example, to see, do they have job ads out for like implementation roles or services roles? or like, we looked at different data sources to see, okay, do we think that they need to buy also a tool for professional services? So we did a pretty good like white spacing analysis using that at least gave you like a subset of customers to start with, to start calling and try to upselling this functionality. So I thought that was pretty maybe simple, but very useful for us.
I love that. Cassie, I'm going to add a little bit more to my question for you because Malin just started to lead towards like white space analysis, revenue growth. Revenue growth is basically everything I talk about on the podcast anyways, if you do listen, but it is a very topical thing happening outside of just AI. Revenue, AI, that seems to be the common thread of 2026 in customer success. So I'm curious, same sort of question, but how are you using maybe anything within AI to improve revenue? You kind of already talked about your forecasting dashboard, but where does AI help your team the most when it comes to the commercial side of customer success?
Yeah, so we're developing right now. We talked about this in the pod, but I actually believe in creating a family of agents, not just one agent. I think everyone should have a chief of staff, actually, and I think it's yeah. I think the chief of staff, when you're thinking about it agentically, should not just be one thing. It should be the manager of a lot of different agents for you. So one of the first ones that we are creating right now that's revenue related is a renewal ride along agent. So we were thinking for a long time, since we own the renewal and the expansion process, we need to improve the commercial. There's a lot that we can do to improve the commercial skill set of the team, but also it's a very manual and tactical administrative process to run a renewal. There's so many different things that need to be done just for the quoting process and scoping and getting everything approved. So for a while, we considered hiring a renewal manager, and I've worked with renewal managers in the past. I think they're very valuable in particular situations. In this case, we weren't planning to have them actually speak to the customer because the customer relationship is so critical at play and very nuanced that we wanted to have one real point of contact for them. So then I thought, if we're not going to actually have them to speak to the customer, what's the point of hiring someone to do this? If we're only going to have them do the liaising with deal desk and legal and all the people that you need to bring to the table to structure a renewal, we can have an agent do that. So we're currently working right now on trying to build a renewal agent. It starts with basic things like prompting you on the next step of the renewal process, sending you alerts, knowing, the time frame that it takes for each stage of our process and making sure that you're staying on top of it. But eventually it should also be a ride along with you to make sure that it's sending deal desk contacts from your gong call on your behalf and saying, here's what we would like to structure in our renewal offering. Can you help us send this through? If it picks up something when you're talking to a customer about needing to get, a revised MSA or something legal to sign off on, it'll go to legal for you. And that's one version of a ride-along, but then it moves into other ride-alongs that you can start to create. So you have a discovery ride-along agent that's joining you, listening to your call in real time and saying, hey, these are questions that you wanted to ask or that we think can help you better uncover value for this customer. And it'll tell you live on the call. I haven't had success in building this one yet, but I've seen someone else do it. So I have faith. It's basically just like a pop-up that's listening to your call as it's happening. Maybe it's routed through Gong, but so that's one other version of another agent. And then there's also agents that you can have just for day-to-day customer management of, making sure that it's catching you in a moment of the customer journey and saying, you're tracking behind on this milestone, make sure you're creating an executive contact and giving you these reminders. But if you have all the context that all those different agents are capturing from various insights into your conversations and your Slack messages and your emails, then all of them can come together to feed a chief of staff or like a central brain agent. And then you can also send those agents and have one manager sending them to do all of their tasks. So it doesn't even have to be centrally managed by you. So that's the ultimate end goal. We have a long way until we get there. We're going to start with this renewal agent and see how that goes. But all of that should be a good way for us to impact revenue because it's giving time back to our teams to actually do pipeline generation instead of all of the other work.
Yeah, I love that. I know we talked about it before, but again, it's so important to remember that it doesn't have to be one and done. It doesn't have to be all perfect. I think a lot of us, like when we start building something, we're like, okay, and then let's add on this and let's add on this. But I love that you just said, we have a family of agents. Yes, we're starting with like a renewals pipeline manager. We're doing these things, but you don't have to have one super agent, which I think sometimes the world likes to make us believe that we need to have all of this figured out. It needs to be one pretty perfect dashboard, one perfect AI agent that's doing it all and replacing customer success managers or whatever is being said these days. But it's really great that a lot of you just shared like little ways that it's affecting your team, but it's so impactful, even if it's just one little agent, one little dashboard, which I love hearing. And you guys talked a lot about dashboards,
CRM data, AI agents. There's a lot going on. But I know you all have very diverse teams as well. And Chad from your growing team to Malin, Planhat grown so much in the last few years. And then Cassie, everything that plays my. How are you getting your teams to actually adopt all of this? Because it all sounds really great in theory, but I know how busy as customer service professionals, like, okay, let me open tab number 700 on my my machine, and then decide to have a call, and then also run to a product meeting, and then do this and this. And sometimes it can be quite overwhelming, and
AI can be quite overwhelming as well. And it sounds amazing, and I love it. But I'm curious how you're getting the team to actually start to adopt these workflows, these agents, everything. Is it being adopted well? Is it not? How are you making sure enablement is happening? Malin, I want to come to you first.
Yeah, and I think I am a little bit lucky because we use Planhat for everything. We use the AI natively in Planhat. My team is very motivated to use it a lot, to learn it really well, because they are also asked to implement this with other customers. Right? So I haven't had that problem really. I also think, as a growing company, I think it's for all three of us, we're always understaffed. So everyone on my team always have too many customers and too big of a book and too many implementations going and too many renewals. So they're very easy to convince if there's something like, hey, like you can say, and I still think it's the simple things that it comes back to. It's like you can prep for a QBR with your biggest customers in like 30 minutes as it was like 5 hours. And no one's going to say no to that.
Yeah.
So I think that, it's been easy for me in that sense.
Yeah. And Chad, you've built out so much custom stuff, which is really cool. I love that you're adding on top of all the tools that you're already paying for, but building stuff in Lovable. How are you getting the team? I know you're hiring like crazy, but how are you getting to adopt everything that you're building as well? Like, how are you making sure there's like a, let's say, uniformity between AI adoption within your team?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, as a native AI company, we're hiring for more technical people to begin with. And so it's also like a prerequisite. We're asking people, like, how are you leveraging AI today? And if they're saying, oh, it's like, I'm using like AI to send emails, like they're almost out of the interview process to be able to speak this. We're really looking for people that are thinking differently in terms of how they're using AI, because it's over 3 years now. So it's almost expected that you should be leveraging it in different ways, especially if you want to work at native AI. And so we also use it in our database. As an example, we're mostly a voice AI company. And so as we know, like sometimes AI doesn't work as we want it. And we have to triage and listen to a call. And so you can use Cursor to evaluate a set of calls and try and pull out information. And this is kind of part of our evaluation auditing process for our customers. And so when we expect them to do that, we expect them to use Cursor to answer questions they have about the product, because it's evolving so fast. These companies, the product evolution in AI companies is crazy. There's people like deploying code from everywhere, like FTEs or engineering, deployment engineers. And so using Cursor can give you the answers that you want. So it's much easier for me, but I would say that it is important as the leader that I'm doing this as well. I'm showing them how you can gain efficiencies. And even some of the reporting that I'm doing. So one of the things that I did is we use HubSpot projects to track our product and implementation projects and any new products that we launch. And one of the things I wanted to show them is that we need to put the target due dates in. It's really important. So we know that, when there's a closing, we can use that for capacity reasons. And I wasn't getting high adoption. So then I took that and I put it into like this Avoca dashboard. And it was very evident to show who had accurate dates, whose things were overdue, and who didn't have any dates. And then I just displayed that, and people did not want to have like yellow and reds. And just, by doing that, it encourages people like, oh, this is really cool. You can display that data really fast. Where ways that I can do the same and build similar things. And so it's just very organic. That's, I have an advantage there.
Yeah. Cassie, agents. I know AI fluency. We talked about it so much on the pod. Your team seems to be so forward thinking and really just like running at like adopting AI tooling and building things. How have you found that navigating to keep up with everything as well as a very fast shifting landscape?
Yeah, I think I'm also very lucky because the team is very technical, and part of what we assess, actually the primary thing we assess in our interview process is technical skills. And usually, we're asking questions about how they're using AI, but it'll show up also in how they're navigating Play. Even though Play has its own AI aspects to it, but it's also a product that, you can get lost in the AI. So the best builders are actually ones who don't use the AI except for like time efficiency. But in order to structure the best workflow, they're doing it themselves. So when we're going through the interview process, we're looking for the people who just used, like, for example, our AI tools are Sculptor and Claygen, which is like you can prompt Clay, hey, build this workflow for me. And we can very clearly see that this was a Sculptor flow. So in our interview process, we'll ask them to walk through and tell us how did it create each of the steps. And they need to be able to explain that. So getting to that level of understanding how the AI works. One of the people on my team says we have to remember that artificial intelligence is artificial and you cannot just think that it's always going to work. So knowing how to pressure test it to me is actually the more important skill. I think everyone is trying Vibe right now, is trying some of these other tools and working on vibe coding their own apps. And, I think that that's now suddenly old. Like it's not necessarily the new wave of testing AI. Instead, the people who are actually savvy at AI are the people who are coming up with new concepts and creative, yes, which is the hardest muscle to build, but also the people who know how to pick apart what AI has built and make it better and know where the AI is breaking, how to better structure prompting. And that's a more difficult skill to build. So I was talking on the pod about AI fluency and how we built it at Monday. And that was months ago. So we were starting from the basics, like how do you even talk about AI? What are the common terms? And then moving forward into forming an opinion about AI, being able to speak to customers about it. At Play, that would land, like they would all be at level 4 already. So I need to restructure my vision of the competency, and the expectations, but also reframe it for not just basic prompting, not just being able to simple language invite customers, but actually breaking the AI and really pushing it to its limits and seeing where should I be more wary of using this and where should I be leaning.
I love that you said AI is only as good as you feed it in. Like, I think a few years ago, we all expected magic from everything being like, oh, we're going to just magically have all this information. But like AI, much like any other tool, is only as powerful as the data you put into it. And customer success is probably most known for dealing with the messy data. It's like, oh, when was that renewal date? Or where did that contract go? Or, hey, where are we finding all this information about handover, et cetera? I feel like that's always been a pain point. And then having clean data, if you can even say those words, is also a typical SaaS problem. So I'm super curious, like with AI can only be as good as the data you end up feeding it, but then how are you getting the right output from your CRM, your customer success tooling? How are you getting all this input in and making sure it's actually accurate as you go out and work with your customers? Is there an operations person? Is there something that you're doing internally with your tech stack, with your tooling, or with your team to really make sure that even with messy data, your AI agents or tools are really deployed to be successful? Chad, over to you on this one first.
Yeah, I would say that what happens is that when we create something and then it spits out bad data, like there's a problem, someone's like, there's bad data, and then we go and fix it. So we don't really have like a scientific way of doing that. We're at the lower stage. We use it, actually. So we have that part down. Just everything else is like really, all those. It's like I didn't even have like consolidated ARR at the account level, and so I'm trying to like understand where our ARR is. So that's kind of where we started. But the only other thing I'd say is like I do pull a lot of data, and then I examine the data. And when I find those issues, then I go back and get it addressed. And you just have to keep inspecting. And that's why, like, not to harp on this, but like, you shouldn't just rely on how your data is in, your CRM. You should be pulling it out and positioning it in a way that helps you manage your business. And so like a great example is like, the time value. Like, I have time value broken down by segment, broken down by month. And I look for like, where are the outliers? And I see like an outlier, why is this an outlier? Because I drill in and it's like, okay, then I drill in, I go, okay, I see there was a problem here. The date was wrong or something like that. And so it's just a matter of making sure you know what's the most important and then keeping that as in this.
Well, again, unique positioning. I know I'm asking you a question from you when you were in this position, but you were in this, the center, the epicenter of probably teams coming to you with data that's not the best and they're like getting on running. But I'm wondering how it is for you guys internally managing everything to make sure that all these wonderful things that you're doing AI first at Planhat is actually deployed correctly.
Yeah, so I preach with my customers every day that they have to have good data because AI without context is, trash. So I'm very passionate about this subject. We also have one of our sellers here in the back, and we also disqualify often customers that when their data is too messy. Like
That's good.
Actually, we have some companies that use AI to clean their data. Now, like one of AI functionality in Planhat is to read PDFs, so we can read PDFs, look at when does a contract start, and then with AR, it would be good for you. And updates that in the fields, right? And I think it is so important. Like nothing is more important, I think, than making sure that you spend the time, like ensuring that your data is as good as it can get, right? And it doesn't need to be perfect. But like there's some baselines that I would definitely take the time and spend the time on before I think that I'm going to build a cool agent that does this, that manages my customers without me, that goes and does renewals and whatnot. Because it's just not worth it. So I think it's super important. We try our very best to have very clean data in our own Planhat instance, right? And we see very clearly, how that helps us use AI in a much better way too.
Cassie, again, unique position, I think, as well. Much like Malin, you guys have work in so much data. So I'm curious, how does that look internally for you as you deploy all your agents? How are you making sure internally your data stays in the right state?
Yeah, we're lucky that we have an ops team that really cares about this. So we just went through a whole process of a huge lift on their end, and it's a human lift and very manually audited. But we saw it as a one-time foundation setting where we have many disparate systems. So for example, contracting, it can go through Salesforce, then there's what's listed in Snowflake, then there's also Monetize Now. So there's so many different tools that are listing different pieces of a quote. And how it was serving up the actual value of a contract, for example, in each of those places could have been wrong. It could have been 3 different values. So our team just went through and created a really strong revenue model. Actually, even though it was a human audit, there's a lot of AI infrastructure in there just to figure out like what is the true source of truth. And now we've normalized all of that data so it can feed our systems much better. So I can't take credit for it. It really requires an incredible ops team. But the other side of that is actually what we speak to our customers about. So one of actually a feature that I launched this week is called Audiences. It's basically like it's kind of a step towards a CED. It's for a database, basically. It's not a CRM. We actually partner with CRMs and with data warehouses, but it gives us better observability into the customer's data because a lot of what they're doing in play, they're asking us for the downstream effect, but we don't have visibility once they leave play. So now we're bringing a lot of the work that used to be tracked outside the platform into the platform, and we're trying to coach them on the same principles of, making sure that the data, first of all, Play can do a lot of data validation and cleanup, which is great. So that's part of the gain that they get from bringing the data into Play. But then also once it's standardized, have it centralized in one place. So all of these different systems, your data warehouse, your CRM, anything else you want to link Clay up to, can use that as a central hub of the cleanest data possible and then feed it back out. But it also gives you observability into the places where your data might be breaking. Like where are the errors actually being created? Where are some of the places that data is wrong or it's returning wrong values or not updating? So that key piece of being able to actually help our customers with governing their own data and having observability into it is also something that we're leaning into and trying to coach them on, similar to what Malin said. But it has to start with you. Like if you don't believe in your own data set, it's really difficult to coach others on what good data hygiene is and the importance of it.
I love that you've all shared teams, things you're building, but I know a lot of people listening to the podcast and probably in this room right now too are starting at zero some days, like no data team, no ops team, or they're trying to be AI curious and figuring it all out for themselves or for their teams for the first time. So if someone had to start on, let's say Monday with no budget, no data team, nothing at all, but they know they have to be AI focused in their next steps in customer success, what would be the one thing that you think they should be focusing on or they should try first with their no budget and no data team?
I can start. I think that it is, it's also something that we preach a lot with our customers. That we have like a crawl, walk, run approach. Because like you're not going to build a renewal agent to renew all your customers on day one. Like very few companies actually do that, right, successfully. But I think look at a process like the renewal process that Cassie mentions, or the implementation process. I think the implementation process is a good example. Like when we started ourselves, for example, okay, we have an implementation process, we have a workflow, some things are manual. So what are one little thing that we can have AI do? So the first thing we did was like, okay, for big enterprise implementations, our implementation manager sends an email every Friday. We're like, okay, this is what we accomplished this week. These are the blockers. This is what we're doing, And like, we just automated that email based on, all call transcripts and emails, the support tickets, all the data that we have. And then the implementation managers just had to, log in and click send, basically. And that saved them, a few hours every Friday. Yeah. Right. And that's like the call approach. So then you're using AI to do something, you're saving time. And I think that's, it's very hard, I think, right now to sit and read on LinkedIn. And I was like, I'm doing this, I'm vibe coding, I'm building a CRM, blah, blah, blah. It's just, I just feel like it's fluff. Just start with like something super simple, because that's where that's where we see our customers successful. Like they start with a crawl, they build one thing, and then in a month they can build another thing and another thing. And that's how you get there.
Yeah, I love that. Great advice. Again, I think everyone feels behind with the AI. I don't even want to call it AI apocalypse. I don't know what to call it anymore. But I just feel like every day, I think I'm pretty AI curious. I feel behind. And I feel like everyone else, whether you're in seat as a CSM, as a CS leader, as anyone working in technology right now, we feel like we have to keep running before we can even crawl, like you said. But I think it's so important to remember, just start with something. Just one baby step will be amazing to see what happens in a week and 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now. So I love that advice.
Chad or Cassie, do you have anything to add to that as well?
One thing just to add is that whenever you're, testing or experimenting, always have like an objective. Like, what is it you're trying to do? And it's usually like a problem that you're solving or that you're trying to solve. Because if you don't, then you'll just get discouraged and you'll get overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, I can watch all these videos and everything like that. So, like as an example, one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to expose positive sentiment from our customers and put it into a Slack channel and call those like customer love thing. And I thought this was like a nice way of celebrating the team and like how our customers feel about us. So I was like, okay, how do I do that? I was like, okay, I need call transcripts. I don't want to like export call transcripts. So I was like, we use attention. It's like, okay, does attention have an MCP connector? Like they do. Okay, great. Okay, like how do I get access to that? So I started looking into that. So we have a connection with our CEO because we were beta. I was like, all right, I need that. So I got that. And then I started pulling that in and pulling in other information from Slack. And then I was able to create this, and it just creates an automated message, and people really like that. And I was like, all right, this is great. This works. Right? All right, what's the next thing? Next thing was customer product feedback. So I did this, I pulled together all the customer product feedback. And so I pushed that out. And then I get this like generic message from our head of product engineering saying, would people who push out AI slop into Slack, please not do that, because it can really offend people who've worked really hard on these products when you're giving product feedback. So I was like, okay, that was not a good thing. I'm going to take that down. But it's just about experimenting. And another great example, what I love the individuals on our team that just start to experiment and try different things. So one person was like, you know what? I want to display information to our customer in a unique way. So I'm going to export out some of the data that we have there on their usage, and I'm going to create an artifact in Claude, and then use that to present that to the client. And they did that, and then they showed that to the rest of the teams. Like, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, how do we then streamline and automate that? And that's when, I was going to ask Cassie how she's doing a lot of stuff, but it sounds like it's an ops team that does that. And so, talking about like getting everyone to use it and experimenting, like what you want to have is people that are experimenting, and then a unified platform that you're building all this off of, so that it doesn't become all these different little projects you're doing. But at the outset, it's just have an idea, keep like asking questions, and then just try like something rather than watching all these videos and getting all overwhelmed. It's not worth it. Like stuff is actually easier than you think. And you can build some really great games.
Yeah, it's actually, our ops team uses a lot the artifacts to GitHub is the best for me. Like you can actually share artifacts in a really easy way by putting it in the GitHub. But the one other thing that I was going to add is it's kind of about what you were saying. But where I would start is actually centralizing as much data as possible. So you were taking quotes from Vaughn or from Attention,
yes,
and Slack. So when I'm thinking like the forecasting app that I built this week, it would be so easy to say I'm just going to feed it in the information from Salesforce about the renewal and about the upsell opportunity, and just then manually input our calls from there, and that's enough. But really, the value of AI in this feeding of as much context as possible. So
my first step for anyone would just be figure out how to build all the connectors you can. Cloud has a million different connectors and you can set very easily, but you need one hub, like one spoke of the needle to connect everything. And once I started thinking about it, I was like, yeah, but I can also use Gong data and what's been posted in Slack about these customers, and then also look at the product feedback that they've been submitting, and all of that can actually create a much richer forecast or help me pressure test and ask questions as people are manually calling your forecast to see, like, actually, I heard this about this customer. And remember when you had that feature request, is that going to impact the renewal? So getting as much of that context centralized and then building on top of that, it's actually created much richer products for me. So if it was step one and they were starting Monday and you want to set yourself up to really accelerate, it's getting everything in one place to start and then going back.
Love that. Now, I've had the pleasure of having each one of you on the pod individually. So this next part, I'm sure you're already prepared, but I want to go into quick fire questions, which I know a lot of people listening to the pod love to have quick, easy answers. And so the challenge is to each one of my panelists today is to answer each one of these questions in a sentence or less. And after this, I will take any questions that anyone has. So keep any questions top of mind once I go through these questions. So quick fire, one sentence or less. My first question is, what is the most overrated AI promise in customer success right now? So overrated promise.
And you can measure all outcomes.
Ooh, that's a really great answer. You can measure all outcomes. Great. Malin, overrated AI promise.
That you're going to buy for your own.
Great answer. Chad?
That you don't need an ops team. It's so easy.
Yeah. Love that.
Just
Love that.
roll it out. It's so simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheesy. Yeah. Okay, opposite question. My next question is, what is the most underrated AI promise or AI thing that more CS teams should be doing? So something that's underrated in AI.
I can start. I think, like, Salesforce talks about headless CRM, and, in Planhat, we do a lot of this thing too. Like, you could do so much these days and not having to update or go and update your CRM, and we just have a call and all the fields will update themselves. And like, it's really cool, actually. Yeah, they don't. It saves a ton of time. And especially if you have salespeople, they don't never update.
I don't want to. I'm going to give salespeople some credit.
They're very good.
too.
They're very good.
Both sales
It's
and
hard to
CS
put
are really
yeah.
bad sometimes in the field.
So I think that's cool.
Yeah, love that. So underrated. Chad, Cassie.
Underrated for me is, I think Vaughn is really under leveraged. Honestly, you have just like a call listening tool or an intention listening tool. There's so much that can be done with these things, but it requires a lot of setup up front. But the context in something like Gong is richer than anything in any other system that I've seen. So I think in general, as a tool, it's under leveraged. I don't know, it's underrated. And I think it gets a lot of hype attention, deservedly, but I think it's definitely large.
Yeah, I would just say the reporting that you can build, how you can customize it however you want. If anyone just hates the way whatever they're using their CRM and how their customers are laid out, I would just say get whatever access is from your CRM, like spin up Lovable, and you can build like whatever you want and it'll look amazing and be like so much easier. Like, so, for example, customer, you have a bundle in X amount of time. You'll get a list of it. You just hit a button and it'll draft up an email and we'll send it. It's just like one example. It just will display it the way that you want it. And like my team does this, like they hate the HubSpot project. So like, oh, okay, I'm just going to build my own interface for this. And I don't care. Like, as long as they're doing what they're doing, great. But it's completely underrated. And it's very easy.
Did you guys notice that no one did it in a sentence or less?
Sorry.
I always know. I always love this challenge. I love this challenge because it's so hard. There's so much to say. But last question before I go to the audience. As AI takes over our entire lives, our work routines, what is one human skill in customer success that becomes most valuable now that AI is going to be running our lives?
For me, it's writing communication. I think we should not be using AI to overly structure our own communication. The deeply human element is what opens the door to an actual relationship. So, I mean, there's definitely time and place for it, but knowing how to create thoughtfully a message that is customized to the person that you're targeting it for and valuable. Sorry, it's one long sentence.
That's okay.
It's one very long sentence. I think it's right.
Amazing. Malin, Chad, what's one human skill that you would say needs to stay while AI takes over?
Yeah, I say you had me on the podcast talk about like strategic customer success manager, and when you're on a call with a customer, like the questions that you ask, the strategic questions, that can't take that over. How you ask them, the sequence, how you respond to their answers, it's really
I think it's just a relationship. A big part of, I think, what we do in sales or post sales or services, whatever it is, it's like we work with people, we have a relationship with people. It really matters. Right? Like if people look at renewing one software or another, sometimes they will go with the one that maybe don't like as much, but they have a great relationship with their CSM, maybe. So that'll be you. Yes.
Agree. I think humans buy with humans, humans interact with humans. We're all here human in person trying to learn from one another. So I think there's lots of things AI cannot replace. So I really appreciate that. Are there any questions from anyone? I'm happy to take one or two.
Thank you so much for the panel. Really enjoyed it. I think one question that I have is, are you facing like buy versus build dilemma? Because I think like it's so easy to say, oh, we're going to build in-house, but then you need to establish governance and there's so much oversight and you need to maintain it. So sometimes like the time to value will be faster if you go and buy an external solution. So how are you handling this? I know you all AI native companies, but I'm pretty curious to know. Thanks.
I just came here from a customer, actually, that we were having this conversation with them. And my husband works in this company. So I thought I got all the intel in the world on, what they wanted and what they do. What I did know is that they lean more heavily into the build than my. What I didn't realize is that so much of their build is influenced by pieces of smaller buys. So I think the best builds are actually build, like first you have to have an incredible amount of internal resourcing, and one that isn't just about the initial build, but the actual ownership and maintenance. So you need to have real product managers, and anytime you build something new, you need to hire another person basically, which also becomes expensive. In the case of this company, it's a huge company they could afford it. But what I was realizing is they wanted like Play to help them with a piece of their homegrown system. So they wanted Play to have an API that would connect to this. So even though technically it's in a homegrown build and a lot of what they're tooling is a homegrown build, we still have room to influence and input certain parts of our product to help them with that build. Whereas before we used to see it as like, oh, it's a homegrown system, it's a German computer that there's no way for us to penetrate it. It's actually now most of these systems I think are infused with smaller elements. Maybe on the full feature set, but certainly certain features of AI as well.
Any other questions? We have time for one more. How do you work against the idea of, well, should we be able to just cut half our teams?
I think then I would ask, okay, what is it that is, saving us so much time? Like point to the processes that we have, all the agents that are doing all this work. Like most companies are not there yet. I think if someone asks you that, they're like, then you have to inform them about kind of what the reality looks like today. I think in the future, we'll see more and more of it. But, and I also think there's, like I said, it's CS is sales and it's services. It's been CS is, not everyone is chat here. Like, AI is very hard. It's very hard for people to get started and knowing what they do. So we actually see that we need bigger services teams. We have forward deployed engineers, all the stuff that people talk about now, because customers are coming to us to be like, we want you to help us, like, we need more guidance. So I honestly feel like sometimes it's the opposite. But
yeah, I can tell you, I just came from like one completely different model to another. So on Monday, we were pushed very hard to maintain the organization, and that my brain, the last 6 years has been focused on efficiency, keeping costs low, keeping headcount low. And it comes at a cost. And I think you have to be able to see that cost. The way that we moved very quickly, we had a new leader come in and he had a very strong vision. And part of that was to remove certain elements of the role or add certain elements of the role. But what we didn't do a good job of was baselining what the role looked like before. So once we made these changes, we could feel that there was a negative effect, but we didn't have good data point to compare it to. And especially when you're working with an executive who's not super closely connected to the fields, you have to have the data to validate some of that. So yeah, for sure, the risk started climbing up, the retention started going down, the attrition of our people started going up. But these were things that, it was easy because we didn't have solid data points to say the other parts of the business were revenues or other changes. At Play's the opposite. We are hiring like faster than I can even keep up with. It's insane how many people we need. And it's because they believe in the value that a human will bring to the customer journey, which I think is so refreshing. I have to change my mindset. Like I'm almost like, whoa, we should slow down. And they're like, what are you talking about? You can hire as many people as you want. So in this world, now I want to be able to track the efficiency of each hire and what they're actually contributing. So I want to see the net gain of bringing on each additional person. And for me, it's easy to know, like, okay, this is how many customers we started the quarter with, and we want to bring it down on a per CSM or per GS, in my case, average. We can see the starting point and the end point, and then we can see the impact that it's had on pipeline generation. Renewal is always a really lagging indicator, so it's hard. But when you're responsible for expansion, for me, pipeline generation is something I can measure quarter. So I learned from my mistakes. I'm starting to benchmark everything so I can make future decisions off of that.
Yeah, I just to add to that, like it's we're in the same mode. Like I think you're like, you have to keep hiring. Like really. But I learned from my past. I've tracked everything, and I talk about the dashboards, like exposing everything and showing like here's where we are, here's what each person's doing, here's what they're contributing. It's so important as a leader to do that, and just to try. And it's so much easier to track now. So one of the things I did, everyone was using every different call recording tools. Is like stop using Fireflies and no, using attention, and then everyone has to be tracking all their emails, so they all go into their CRM. So we track centrally, and so by doing that, and showing all the activities and showing the capacity and really displaying that, it was very evidence. Oh my gosh, our capacity is running out. We have to keep firing, and here's what each individual is doing. And by tracking that and showing that, you're able to show who the high performers are and where the problems are, and why you need resources. So even in these environments, just like you said, we're maximizing resources.
I think it's a great question, but I think it's also just a lot of reality where people are like, oh, AI is going to come and take customer stats jobs. But I always like seeing, funny enough, if you go to Anthropic's job board, or you go like any other AI tools job board, and I know there's some sitting right here too, where they can't seem to get enough bums and seats right now with hiring. And I think there might come a stage where operational efficiency does win, but I do think right now there's just so much AI curiosity, and again, it's a tool, right? And we need people to send tools, and it's just great to see that AI is being looked at and thought about, but also not replacing. And I think that there's a lot of fear in that, and I really hope that we realize that there's 3 wonderful people here saying that it's quite the opposite at their companies, and I think it's quite the opposite in a lot of SaaS organizations, but I think there's a lot of fear mongering happening out there, AI is going to downsize teams. Yes, it might. There might be some efficiency gains, but I think that they're using AI as a excuse to rather than that's the real cause of why they're downsizing. So, but thank you to all 3 of you for such a great, meaningful conversation. I really appreciate your time and energy. I am going to wrap us up and just say that there's pizza here for all of us. So please enjoy the pizza. I have one ask, which is I'd love to document everyone in this room because it is our first podcast recording live. So we'll take a group photo together just to say that this was a monumental moment and hopefully many more to come from this. But otherwise, please stay, enjoy the pizza, enjoy having conversations in person, in real life. And thank you again so much for coming this evening. I really appreciate it.